I think interfaith represents a new and upcoming trend within campus life and within the Jewish and non-Jewish community generally. I think interfaith has a lot to offer us on two levels. Number one is knowledge. There's a lot of young Jewish people who have very little knowledge, almost insulting knowledge of other people's faiths, whether it be Hinduism, Sikhism, Islam, Jainism, whatever, Buddhism. Now, that on one level, it's important that we understand each other's issues, so that we understand the faith of each other. And on the second level, we also can use it to break down barriers and myth bust about each other. So when there is potential political conflict or religious conflict either, for example, between Muslims and Jews, then we can break down those barriers and start to work together to fight prejudice together.
I think interfaith relations as in Jews and non-Jews. Okay, yeah, I think I agree with that completely, because you know what? For example, me living in Bahrain, which is in the Middle East, never have any of my friends ever met a Jew in their life, and they probably had like the worst feelings towards Jews when they were there. And having met me, they got to know who I am, and they realized that we're not what we're made out to be on the newspapers. We're not what we're said to be. A lot of people don't know who we really are, and they should take the chance on us to know who we are before they judge us, and that's what I think.
I can't think of any useful examples right now, but I think religious people should definitely, as a religious community, try and make more effort to contribute to creating goodness in the world. So I feel as if they are the most powerful communities who can, because they center their lives on a very powerful ideology, which, if they apply those principles into their everyday life, I think that could have a very impressive change in how society goes.
I mean, I'm personally quite a big fan of interfaith. I think it's really useful because, well, the talk is very nice, but what goes on afterwards, these events, that's where the true interfaith occurs, because you're sitting around, you're talking, you're schmoozing, and people actually get to discover that, hey, the Jews aren't such, there are such things as Jews, and they actually are normal people. They're not like some wackos or anything like that.
Interfaith is important because we need to combat anti-Semitism, and there are people willing to talk, so we need to use them, and we need to get through to them, and they can help us and convince other people.
Myself, I'm a big fan of Jewish-Muslim relation. Interfaith. Because a lot of our issues on campus are very similar, and people, they don't realise that. And we don't realise that.
Okay, yeah.
As people on campus, we just don't realise that. And it kind of half annoys me that we don't realise that. So through these events, people actually realise that they have got similar issues.
The best way to engage with other people is to find common ground. And through those common grounds, we can build friendships and we can build good relations. And there shouldn't be any doubt that in Islam and Judaism there are so much similarities, not only in religious terms, but in terms of its history. Muslims have been victims of colonialism, victims of different forms of oppression throughout its history. The same applies to Jews. They've been persecuted because of their race, because of their beliefs, because of things.
Faith work is very important so that people of different religious backgrounds understand each other. Also, people of no particular religious background can understand people of a religious background. And simply through that understanding, not necessarily agreeing all the time, but at least making those first initial steps of dialogue and maybe action, campaigning together, that can be a very powerful thing for society in creating goodness.
But at the same time, there is a tremendous opportunity, for interfaith work. I would say that almost every opportunity that I have seen taken has been very successful. And can take place in a number of different ways, either as a forum and you get a number of people to speak about different issues, or just, and then perhaps more importantly, to let people know what Judaism and what Jewish people are about.
Interfaith, yes, this can only be achieved by education and tolerance.
I'm tempted to say that there's not much you can do, but I do think that isn't really true. I think that we have to put ourselves out there in a positive light, and I think that one of the things that we keep on doing, specifically on campus, is always defending ourselves, and I think it's about time that we actually kind of educated people rather than just defended.
At the same time, in Austria, only lately, there were marches from young people and students which said, we were guilty. We are not our grandparents. And we have to amend and understand.
The best way to fight anti-Semitism is to fight all forms of racism.
Any form of racism, I mean, which comes under the brackets of racism. Anti-Semitism can come under racism. Islamophobia can come under racism. You know, we as Jews shouldn't just be fighting for anti-Semitism and say, oh yeah, because we want positive relations with Muslims, you know, we should start fighting against Islamophobia. Well, you know, Jews on campus should be working with the LGBT, working with the black students, wherever it happens. You know, Asian societies, we shouldn't be thinking, you know, oh, well, anti-Semitism, yeah. It should be just generally racism. You know, Judaism doesn't believe in racism. We should be fighting. Judaism should be at the not Judaism, but Jews should be at the forefront of anti-racism campaigns, because these are fundamental values that we believe in, and we as a people have suffered in the past over this, right? And maybe because, you know, we're having relatively better times than in the past, that we're probably forgetting about this, and we're becoming just like the general student population, which is generally apathetic. You know, I'm not going to give my time to doing these campaigns, because what does it really get out of? What do I get out of it?
When we're trying to resolve conflict, perhaps we shouldn't always look for a permanent peace immediately, and perhaps be overly optimistic that we can attain nowadays total love and peace. Maybe what we should be looking for is temporary peace, and to look for temporary resolutions, and then have that, please God, ultimate peace when there's oneness after Mashiach.
And this gone on now for nearly 2,000 years, and it hasn't changed.